Hey, this is Benjamin Nelson, your Season 7 WSSR Cup champion. I'd like to give a thanks to Roasted Gems Coffee, Trophy Smack, all the admins at WSSR, Snowy Desert Racing, everybody that tunes in to the Freaky Fast broadcast every week, including my family and friends, co-workers as well. And I am so honored to be able to hoist this beautiful trophy. I've never been more proud to be a champion.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Freaky Fast Broadcasting on your Wednesday night. A whole season has now come together for tonight's race, the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series, the final race of the regular season. After tonight, 16 drivers will be placed and set up for playoff racing action starting next week. But first, they have to survive probably one of their toughest tasks of the season. You thought super speedway racing was hard at Daytona, maybe Talladega? Well, let's try taking the Gen 4s to the brand new configured Atlanta super speedway, a track combination that these drivers really didn't know what was going to happen before last week. A lot of testing has gone in. Some drivers had to go find 1 to 2 streams that maybe would show a little bit of a glimpse of how this car in-track combo are going to work. But we're excited for all the action because I'm hearing it's going to be a lot of tire wear here tonight with these Gen 4s. Again, welcome with us here on Freaky Fast Broadcasting. My name is Sam Dyer. Joining me up in the booth, it's going to be Justin Malarkey. And Justin, it's points day. Points now matter the most. Who's in, who's out? It's time to bring out our calculators as we get ready for tonight's race.
All night we will be bringing out the calculators, informing the viewers on who's in, who's not going to be in, trying to keep everyone updated. But like you mentioned, it being a pack type track tonight where there's going to be pack racing, I think it's going to be really hard on that calculator. We're going to be burning through the batteries all night trying to see who's in. But I tell you what, if you win, you probably are going to get yourself in, and that's going to be the goal for most of these drivers tonight.
It's going to be a massive goal as there's going to be a lot of drivers in the win and you're in situation. There are some drivers that are in a must-win spot for themselves. But let's take a look at where the drivers are going to be starting out here tonight as we go trackside to check out some qualifying racing as these drivers again racing at the newly configured Atlanta Motor Speedway. Still a mile and a half long in distance, with a little bit of extra banking, the smaller, narrower track through the corners. It's going to allow these drivers to be compact on top of one another. We're seeing a lot of practicing of going 3 wide, but here during qualifying, it's all about the speed to get up front.
Hey, definitely probably want to be running the top on these exit laps, build up that momentum like you mentioned, and then get down to the bottom, shortest distance. See these drivers try to cut the corner down on the front straightaway, maybe get below that line a little bit, try and gain a little bit extra speed on track. But qualifying is going to be really important. You want to start up front, hopefully avoid any potential early chaos. You don't want to be caught up and ruin your night early because that could be detrimental.
As we take a look at some of the drivers that are in those crucial spots, Ben Keeney, that's going to be on screen, bringing out the driver cam for these drivers here tonight. We got a total of 4 cameras. We'll be swapping through this evening, but Ben's in an interesting spot, comes into the night 26th in points, and he's just 1 point out of making the top 25. And if Ben can advance by that 1 point and win, he's making the playoffs. But that's the only way that Ben can make the playoffs, is if he wins and is inside the top 25 in points. There's also about 2-3 other drivers behind this 98 machine that are in a similar spot for themselves to go after. We'll see how well they can try to set up for this race, but qualifying, getting up front, track position, You know, it's not something that we really think about here a lot, Justin, but track position could be very key here at this new Atlanta paved course with currently Ken Campbell leading the charge.
If you can lead the race, be in the front row, control your own destiny, chances are the accident might happen behind you. That would be what these drivers want. Ken Campbell, Zachary Hall right now being the top two. They're hoping they can stay on that front row and not have to deal with anything behind them. Set this race early, especially with the unknown of going into a plate style race with track position going to be needing to be really clean. You're not going to want anyone having any deals with pit road entry tonight. We're going to talk about that later on. But these drivers getting down to 45 miles an hour, you cannot have any speeding penalty here with the track being so fast with this repave.
Absolutely not, especially when you look back at the past. This racetrack's only been ran once in the past, and there was only one caution during that race. There were some green flag pit stops that kind of changed up how the racing action had to go down there late. But for their final lap, it's the 8 machine of Brian McCann crossed the line using the apron. That's free game for drivers to use during qualifying and during the race. And it's 6th on the board for the 8 machine, who's one of few drivers that are hunting for a chance to go after the regular season's championship. But due to the fact of the amount of drivers that have shown up here tonight, Brian McCann's chances of going for the regular season championship look to be out of reach for the 8 machine, which will be now moved to just a 3-horse race for the regular season championship and have the most bonus points going into the playoffs, that being Ryan Kelly, Ryan P. Johnson, and Larry Yingling. They're going to have their own duel. Then there's the duel of the points of who's making it in the top 16 and then who's going to win or win in your in situation. As the 13 is Cedric Hunter finishes lap number 1, going to be the slowest out lap for any drivers, currently 22nd on the board.
Slow out lap, but he was really right up against that wall trying to build up all the speed he can. He's going to bring it down lower now for the second lap. Throwing away that first lap though, Sam, giving all the momentum to the high side, trying to build up that speed. And we're going to see right here when he comes out of this corner, thinking he's going to try and cut it low like we've seen these drivers do. That's exactly what he's going to do, bring it right down to that grass. And he's going to clock in at a 31.269, but not going to be able to get the pole, unfortunately, for Cedric Hunter. But
Instead, it's Bryson Hicksonbaugh. Both were crossing the line at the same time, and it was the 63 who is in a very slim margin of making the playoffs. Already has a win back at Las Vegas in the middle of the season. Joined late was Bryson Hicksonbaugh. The 63 starting exactly where he needs to be, up front, trying to grab a bonus point if he can of leading the lap, leading the most laps. The last driver that won here at Atlanta was Zach Hall, who did this, got the pole, led the most laps, and won. Bryson Hicksonbaugh is in a good spot for himself, grabbing that pole award. As we have now finished practice qualifying, we're now into the 5-minute warm-up period, which allows us to take a better picture of what these drivers are heading into here tonight. As the drivers will have 5 minutes, get a little bit more practice for how the pack racing will be here this evening. But let's take a look at the point standings. Talked about how confusing they're going to be coming into tonight. Well, it's going to be very confusing for some of the drivers on where they're placed, because we see our marker of the cutoff at 16 and 17. Those drivers are tied of Ken Campbell and Cedric Hunter, but actually that marker is going to be moved down to where Cedric Hunter is, because Brandon Colley, who's currently down in 14th after last week's race, not happy with how this racing in his season's been going, has left the league, no longer will be racing, is now out of the playoffs. That cutoff marker now is moved, and it's going to make things a lot closer, because now Cedric Hunter, Ken Campbell, tied for 15th and 16th in points. They've got a 10-point buffer over Edward Sherwood Jr. in the 71.
With the deletion of Brandon Colley, is going to open up a chance for one extra driver. We've seen all year these drivers be so competitive, so close. Someone even without a win could still win this championship easily. We've seen these drivers all year put on a great show. Not everyone's able to get a win, but the competition level being so high, that opening the door for someone like Cedric Hunter, who we saw qualifying, or Ed Shearer Jr., Isaiah Sutherland. We've seen those guys run up front. Johnny Brugg, we know he had speed throughout the season. Anthony Gaudio, Danny Cochran, Cody Reed. All those guys now have a chance to get into that top 16 and then go in and make noise for those final few races in the playoffs.
In looking at drivers that are here and those that are missing out on this race currently, another bubble spot to look at is the battle for 25th in points. Bryson Hicksonbaugh is down in 28th in points right now. If somehow the 63 can get inside of the 25, inside the top 25 in points, he will be running in the playoffs, and his win at Las Vegas will count. And what's helping Bryson Hicksonbaugh is it looks to be Cameron Sarton in the 99, who came into the night 24th in points, is not here. That is a 36-point buffer that is just opened up. If Bryson Hicksonbaugh can get over 37 points, we will see the 63 in the playoffs if he can somehow make his way forward.
He's going to want to lead that first lap, get the point, and win this race. He's got to go max points. He needs to do everything he can. He's a driver. If he gets in, Sam, he could be one that can take the title. We've seen him consistently all year have speed. He's a driver, and we know we have to keep an eye on throughout the race. Someone that gets in could be a trouble for all these drivers to deal with.
Also looking at other drivers that are here and not going to be showing up, Edward Sherwood Jr. not going to be showing currently. Johnny Brugg, who's 21st in points, not here. Those are massive drivers that are missing out on a chance to try to point their way into the playoffs. Instead, they'll be watching back, and if they do come back, they'll just be running in the playoffs, trying to go for wins and not the championship, which, I mean, it helps out, you know, the pressure for Isaiah Sutherland and Cody Reed. Now they know, hey, we just need to gain a couple of more points, so our competition a little bit lowered, but with the lesser car count, it takes away some of those extra points that you were hoping to grab for yourself. But hey, let's take a look at the schedule here, because after tonight at Atlanta Super Speedway, we get ourselves set up for the playoffs. It's going to be a round-based playoffs, 3 rounds in total. First round is going to be 2 races at Darlington and Legacy, Phoenix. Second round is going to be at Iowa and Legacy, Kentucky. And our last round is going to be the 2.5-mile courses of Charlotte and Kansas, where the field, they're going to be starting out with our 16 drivers making the first round. Then we'll knock out 5 drivers. We're only 11 making it into round 2 before we find our championship 6 that will run the last round of the playoffs that will hunt for the Season 8 championship. Certainly, we look at this, Justin, going to be a fun rest of the season with the playoffs starting next week.
It is going to be a blast. Getting to those final few races, 6 drivers. We have so many drivers in here that already have wins. It's only going to be able to be 6 going for it, though. I can't wait to see what 6 drivers make it. I think right now we don't even have a clue. We probably aren't going to be able to predict, because tonight could be something that changes the playoffs just with the seating order, as these drivers have to get through this race first, and then they'll see where their seating is.
Yeah, trying to figure out where your seating is going to be a big thing to watch out for, because where you finish in the regular season, you're going to be grabbing some bonus points heading into the playoffs. So these drivers know every point is very crucial, and that's why also looking out for Kyle, Ryan Kelly, Brian P. Johnson, and Larry Yingling, where those 3 finish here tonight could be crucial on who grabs that championship for the regular season heading into the playoffs next week. You see the wreck there as they're finishing up warm-ups. Get excited, because we might be seeing even bigger wrecks when we go green, as the drivers have just finished up practice, qualifying, the warm-ups done. It's time for 150 laps to be ran at Atlanta Super Speedway. Seeing this asphalt clean and crisp certainly is pretty to look at, Justin, but man, the racing action is going to heat up here tonight.
Yeah, that track, that new fresh pavement. But don't be fooled by it. These tires, I think, are still going to be under extreme wear and tear, even with it being a brand new surface. These Gen 4 cars with the horsepower, getting into the speeds, getting into the corners, they might really starting to burn up those front tires. And it'll be interesting if this race does stay green for a while. Will this field get separated, or will these cars be able to stay on top of one another utilizing the draft? Going back to the NASCAR race on Sunday, we saw at one point where the drivers kind of got a little spread out, but then they were able to use that draft and get right back together when they were double file. It will be interesting to see what happens. I can't wait. We're going to find out really soon here.
Can't wait for it. Let's take a look at our starting grid here tonight. Bryson Hicksonbaugh on the 63, going to be in the pole award spot with John Forbes in second. Ken Campbell going to be starting in 3rd position. Zach Hall in 4th. Larry Yingling going to be in 5th place. Chris Stitt's going to be in 6th. 7th goes to Anthony Gaudio. That of Brian McCann in 8th. 9th goes to Jason Tamer. And finishing out our top 10 is Isaiah Sutherland.
Pulling off in 11th and 12th, going to be the machines of Cedric Hunter and Benjamin Nelson. 13th, 14th, going to be Shane Therian, Douglas Newbigging, followed by Nick Crawford and Cody Reed in 15th and 16th. 17th going to be Danny Cochran and Brian P. Johnson in 18th. Rolling off in 19th, going to be Christopher Norris and Ollie Fonseca in P20th.
Then in 21st place, going to be finding the 31 of Kyle Heath. Ben Keeney going to be all the way down in 22nd position. 23rd is where we find James Heater. Ryan Kelly starting all the way at the end of the line, back in 24th with James Kaufman taking that shotgun seat. Very far back is going to be Ryan Kelly. Kind of a shocker to see the three machines so far back, but up front, Bryson Hixenbaugh, the stage is set. It's simple. All that Bryson needs to aim for is finish inside of the top 7, and you find yourself racing in the playoffs. But with super speedway type racing, you never know. You might be up front till the white flag comes out, and then you could be finishing last. These drivers all know the risk is here. There's no competition yellow, just a lot of great racing as the Atlanta 150 is underway. Seeing the drivers for the WSSR Season 8 is about to come to a conclusion for the regular season. Bryson Hixenbaugh, Ken Campbell already pulling away through 1 and 2.
Bryson Hixenbaugh taking that lead. He wants to get around, get that point led. That would be mission accomplished for lap 1, but these drivers getting single file down on the bottom, that's what he wants to see. Not seeing anyone pull up alongside him right now. Maybe these drivers are going to play it easy in the beginning, but as I say that, they go too wide already. Up there, we're going to have, looks like Ken Campbell jump up there, Anthony Valiant jump in the second lane, but Bryson Hixenbaugh going to potentially lead this lap, get that bonus point.
Getting the bonus point, massive for Bryson Hixenbaugh, needing every point possible for this 63. Gets only 1 bonus point for leading the lap. You get 1 bonus point for leading the most laps, and then if you win for Bryson, you get another bonus point. Because he's already won this season, the goal is be inside the top 25 in points, but another driver that wants to be up front, John Force, very quick at super speedway courses, have shown his prowess on Monday nights in the ISRC Truck Series, and 11 is up front leading that outside lane.
11 taking that lead on the outside line, getting that lap lead right there. He wants those points. Ken Campbell right behind him, going to be pushing him through that corner too. Bryson Hixenbaugh going to try and charge back on the inside. These drivers now are 2x2 like we were expecting. This is starting to look just like Daytona Talladega. Coming down the back straightaway, they're going to hit big speeds though. These cars have tons of power. That's what we're talking about. These tires are going to definitely be screaming going into these corners and getting heated up fast.
They certainly are, as John Force, Bryson Hixenbaugh going to be your front runners for now. Talking to some of the drivers, though, coming into this race, all I was hearing, tire wear. You have to protect your tires. Atlanta, known for being a tire eater on the old configuration, but I was hearing a lot of noise of these tires can fall away quickly if you're not protecting them and taking it slow and easy into these corners early. In the long run, we're going to see who protected their tires and who didn't.
That is something that's going to be really fun to watch. We love it when we see comers and goers throughout the race. I think this track tricks you into thinking you could run wide open because you really can in the beginning, but are you paying that price? Are you, if you just lift the throttle that little bit and save that little bit of tire, do you see lap 20? Are you the driver that's able to drive right to the front when others start fading and they can't hold it wide open anymore? That's what's going to be really fun to watch all night.
One of the drivers that's given up the most time in positioning right now is Zach Hall, and his teammate, Brian P. Johnson, one of the highest movers up 8 spots, as well as Cody Reed up 8 spots, who's that pink machine with the smiley face in front of Zach Hall. As you see the teammates of the Carolina Reapers trying to move forward together, as well as their teammate Shane Terrian, all the way back in 21st position, just at the tail end of the group. And you know, super speedway type racing, always interesting on the different tactics drivers think about as we're 6 laps in of 150 of do you want to be aggressive up front, or do you decide to run in the back, stay the patient round, and kind of hope that your car stays alive, because these drivers do not have a fast car to work with here tonight.
And what Zach Hall is seeing right now is he's watching out there in front of his car. He wants to see if anyone looks like they might be getting in a position where they might potentially wreck. If he sees someone make a move for 3 wide or someone get below an apron, that's right now he's probably trying to stay back, give him that little bit of distance. That'll keep him out of trouble. At least it gives him a chance to react. He's got people behind him too, though, and that's the other problem. Is people see him maybe going a mile, 2 miles an hour slower, and all of a sudden they want to get by you, and then they got to deal with the problem of how much can you save versus the risk or losing position on track.
The drivers continue to stay side by side up front. Right on board, Zach Hall looking back in the middle of the pack, seeing Ollie Fonseca, Douglas Newbiggie, and a few other drivers in the middle of the field. picking and choosing. How do you want to go forward? Because right now it looks to be pretty stable. No one trying to force the issue to go 3 wide, but that was something I was watching also during practice for these drivers. They can go 3 wide, but it's very tricky. I think the only time you feel safe to go 3 wide is when you have newer tires. Old tires, it is a huge gamble to try to make those type of big moves.
Yeah, I don't know about going 3 wide on old tires. This track just not as wide as Daytona and Talladega. It will be interesting. It'll be a show. I know you know it's going to happen, Sam. I know it's going to happen. These drivers know eventually it'll happen. You see right now under 2x2, you can't make a move. Someone's going to venture up into that 3rd lane. But when do you do it? Lap 9, I don't think anyone's going to be that driver who wants to get up there yet. But it will be really fun to see who's one of the first ones to go there. As you see, driver get way below the line down there, trying to make some time. Ollie Fonseca, again, no out of bounds there.
Yeah, no out of bounds, but there is going to be kind of an honor system. You can be penalized as we take a look here at Brian McCann's camera as he's on the outside of the front pack, but there is an honor system of if you go down below the red line, it is fair game, but it is your choice to go down there. And if you come back up on the track and you're involved with the wreck, you will be taking blame for that incident. So it's a high risk, very low reward currently to go down on the apron and make any big moves currently.
A lot of high risk, a lot of reward tonight. We're not in Vegas, so I don't know how much gambling these drivers are going to do, but we know drivers need to win, and it's going to get desperate once we get maybe 50, 40 laps to go. Some of these guys are going to be making moves that they might not normally make, but knowing that the playoffs are on the line, you got to win. Some of these guys have to win. We have to keep reminding the viewers tonight, win and you're in. That's the name of the game. So some of these guys are going to be making moves. It's going to be really fun. Right now, though, they're staying calm.
Staying calm, and talked about how this is kind of a new paved course, and we were seeing the shaking of hands for Brian McCann on his camera. It's because of force feedback that the 8 is dealing with. He's got such a high force feedback compared to other drivers. His steering wheel is shaking a lot, and Justin, that's kind of one of the funner things of us having driver cams is we're able to see some of the drivers and the way that they're dealing with force feedback. But what is force feedback for the viewers that may not know, as we also take a look at the weather that's going on. A little bit hot of a track going on at 106 degrees track temp, and we're curious on how much that's going to raise. But that force feedback the driver's going to be sensing, and we're going to be seeing those hands moving in the driver cams all throughout tonight. Seems like some like to have it higher than others.
Force feedback, to give the viewers a great understanding, we're on a simulator. We want to make it as realistic as possible. These drivers in real life, when they go out and they turn the wheel just doesn't want to turn easily. There's force going into the gravity of the car getting into the turn. So the same thing with the simulation. You get into the corner and it makes it really hard to turn the wheel. You got to start turning a little more, use a little more arm muscle. And then as the tires wear out, you're getting more of that feedback into the car. It's just a way to make the simulator feel even more realistic, more immersive. They do a great job with it. It's something that the real life drivers talk about all the time. They're able to get in there, do testing. So force feedback is just another way. Drivers have all different settings. Some like it light, some like it a little more heavy feeling, but just gives you that extra feeling of realism.
It certainly does seem to be helping some drivers over others as this run progresses forward. Again, 150 laps. I was talking to Zach Hall and that Carolina Reapers crew coming into this race. I know they were doing a lot of testing, trying to figure out what the fuel run was going to be for some of these drivers. How strong was the draft going to be for tonight's race? And at what point were the tires going to start to fall away? They were telling me fuel. Interesting number here. I know we weren't able to officially give it to you just until now, but looks to be around 76 laps these drivers can go on fuel. So that's directly at halfway, but tires, it sounds like they might be completely done and dusted around 60 laps into this run. So the fuel and tires don't seem to be matching up perfectly, but we'll see who wants to stretch it out to the halfway zone and turn this race into a one-stop, or who's going for the two-stop strategy.
Fuel and tires not matching up is not what drivers ever want to hear. Ideally, you'd like to get the tires to last the whole fuel run. It does bring up a great point. You do not want to probably do two stops here just because you could lose probably a lap and a half with the track being so fast out there. I'm running about 30-second laps, and you still got to get down pit road. As we do have Ben Keeney, it looked like he tagged a wall a little bit up there. He's able to get out of the wall, but the 98 did get up into the wall. One of our drivers that's on that playoff bubble. Not too much sustained damage, but we'll have to keep an eye on it, make sure he doesn't have too much fender sticking out.
Yeah, fuel run and tires can be important, but for Ben Keeney, it looked like Shane Terrian forced the issue going 3 wide between Benjamin Nelson. Shane Terrian went in the middle and kind of drifted up into the 98, pushing Ben into that outside wall. Hate to see that for Ben, but luckily, big thing you can take away is these cars can take a little bit of a beating and scrape into the wall and still attached to the back half of the pack. That is a big positive you can take away. But it looks like a driver that's on the move is the 9 of Shane Terrian, who is not waiting for anyone currently. That 9 machine wants to go as we're 18 laps into this run.
You are definitely correct. The 9 machine does want to go. He wants to get up there and start leading this race. I noticed a few times it looked like he was just trying to sniff that outside lineup in that third lane, trying to see if he could get around anyone. But right now, looks like he might maybe poke his nose into the middle, but it's going to think better of it. But he is running a little higher right there. You see that seam in the track. He's getting into the corner a little higher and then coming down the track. Maybe he's got something figured out that he's able to get around some of these guys as he moves up through his field now into the top 10.
Yeah, and you talked about how NASCAR actually was at Atlanta this past Sunday, and they had the dotted lines to kind of show which lanes are where. We have the dark seams that you said that they were, that the drivers kind of utilize as the 3 defined lanes that you kind of run in to try to give yourself some spacing in the field around one another. But as this run progresses, being 20 laps in, this was around the zone. I was being told, if you were pushing your tires, watch out. The first driver that starts to maybe drift up in the center of the corner, graze that outside wall, be prepared to see a lot more of other drivers start to drift up as well.
We hit that lap 20 mark, we're going to start seeing it. I also saw when we were in-car camera with the 9 there, a couple of drivers, you see that fire spitting out of the exhaust pipe. That's letting us know that the drivers are lifting, getting into the corners, so they're not running wide open like they maybe were doing earlier in this race. Now starting to lift. That's also going to help save a little bit of fuel, being in the draft, not pushing that air. If you are lifting a speck sooner, getting into the corner, if you can make it get to 77 laps, you know you're going to be good to get to the end of the race on one stop.
Who's aiming for the 1 stop? Who's going for the 2 stop? Who's willing to make some big moves? Chris Stitz, driver that's in a must-win scenario for the 17, and as well wants to make sure that he's ahead of Bryson Hicksonbaugh and also hoping to be in front of Danny Cochran. But because of Cameron Sarton not being here, nor Johnny Brugg, the 17's in a good spot where even if he wins, there is no worry of being bounced out of the top 25 in points. It's just get a win is the only goal of the 17, as well for the 2 of Danny Cochran. And because of the amount of drivers that showed up here tonight, you could also probably put Cody Reed and Isaiah Sutherland in a spot where they're in a must-win scenario to find themselves making the playoffs. And there's only 1-2 spots that really can be grabbed here with the win or pointing your way in, which puts Ken Campbell and Cedric Hunter in that spot of gotta be careful if you're up front.
There's definitely some drivers out there that are in that trouble spot where if they get caught up in a wreck, they could lose those points like you mentioned. But other drivers, though, it's one submission. Win, in, no worries. Get that win, get the win. Get the win, you're in. Next week will be fun if you can get in. If not, you're going to be one of those drivers just trying to seal a deal and have a nice season. Not racing for playoffs, though, unfortunately, if not able to get into the top 16. But these guys up front, it looks like they're all of a sudden they were 2 by 2 by 2, and now they're a little bit getting a little more spread out. Maybe that tire wear is starting to show up, Sam.
Tire wear starting to show, and this was something I was being told, is watch out 25 to 30 laps in, you might start to see some spacing. And then when you're 40 laps into a run, if they can keep it clean and green, you're going to see a lot more spacing out. The wear and tear just gets so much more dramatic. These drivers already running about 1.5 seconds, some already 2 seconds slower than their fastest time, just because of how much wear they're dealing with. We're only 25 laps into this run.
It's going to be really interesting if you see drivers decide that tires end up being more important. If you start doing the math, if you were able to go 2 seconds faster, do you make that second pit stop? Can you make that time up? I think the big thing will be you might need a partner out there to help push that air, and you push him down the straightaways. Maybe a 2-car team can get up there and be able to race single file on the inside line pushing versus right now racing side by side, which might eat in more to the tires.
Bryson Hicksonbaugh, his 5 races he's ran this season. Won his very first race he showed up for, then got 3rd, 6th, 7th last week at Nashville Super Speedway. But the one glaring mark on his sheet was beginning of February at an Auto Club, finished 27th, and that was the race that we kind of deemed could have been the playoff ender for Bryson Hicksonbaugh. But if he finishes again inside the top 7, believe the points could line up for Bryson to be inside of a top 25 in points and make the playoffs with his win from Las Vegas. And with a lot of these drivers at this moment, I'm curious how many of them are having someone in their ear, letting them know the big picture, or are they just racing for the win and says, if I get caught up in a wreck, whatever happens, or are they thinking playoffs is what I want to make?
Hopefully some of these drivers do have someone in their ear giving them that information, because the last thing you want to do is find out that you were good if all you had to do was maybe just hang out in the back and avoid the accidents, and then before you know it, you didn't know that information, you get caught up in something. But for Bryson, right now his mission is to try and lead all these laps he can so he can get that bonus point. The problem is John Forbes is like, no way, I'm beating to the line almost every time up there I check. It looks like he beats him to the line, gets that point, gets that lap led, and that's not what Bryson wants to see. He needs to lead these laps to get that extra point. That could be something right at the end. We might be talking a 1 point difference.
I mean, John Forbes, a driver that is so good at super speedway style courses. I mean, some say he's got a golden horseshoe, but he certainly is someone that knows how to get up front, stay out front, and avoid big wrecks when it matters, as you got our John Forbes camera on. And one of the drivers that's using 3 monitors set up to have the clear viewing around. I know, Justin, yourself, you've got 3 monitors that you also use when you're driving out there on iRacing.
Yes, I was on single monitor for a little bit and then was able to switch over to 3, and I just really like to be able to see out that right side a little bit. It gives you that more of what the human eye would see. I like that. Some drivers prefer single monitors. Some drivers prefer virtual. I've never experienced virtual VR, not sure how that would work, but I'm sure that drivers probably really like it once they get used to that immersiveness. I personally really like the 3 monitor setup. Able to see on the left, right side, no problems. But right now I'm seeing a 24 car maybe going to the middle, but he's able to get in front of the 52 before they were 3 wide. That was one of the first drivers I saw come from the outside line down into the middle, but he's able to get to the bottom before. Something we'll keep an eye out. Will these drivers start making these moves, getting into the 3rd lane, running three abreast, going across these turns? Could be something that could be trouble for these drivers.
It could be. That was the purple machine of the 24 of Ali Fonseca running the Larry Art Productions machine in the 24, trying to make their way forward as we are 31 laps into tonight's race. Still plenty of racing action to give you here tonight. Though, need to take a quick sponsor talk before these guys really get out of control. Want to give a huge shout out to our amazing sponsors at Roasted Gems Coffee. Roasted Gems Coffee. Go elevate your coffee experience today by heading over to roastedgems.com, checking out all their quality and amazing different flavors and brews, blends to try out. Remember, when purchasing from roastedgems.com, use the promo code WSSR for 5% off on your coffee purchase. And Trophy Smack. Go show off your victory or go show off your losing moment with your amazing Trophy Smack trophy, as you can go find yourself a already pre-made trophy, championship trophy, belt, ring, and more. Or you can also customize your own trophy, belt, ring, or more at trophysmack.com. And when purchasing, remember to use the promo code WSSR Smack for 10% off. Thank you to our amazing sponsors that helped out here in the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series throughout this season. It's been a pleasure to have you on board for Season 8. As the field continues to stay side by side, Justin, the movements are showing. Drivers are poking the nose. I think it's that swing we were talking about where the comers and goers are about to show.
I think it is too. Lap 35 we're about to hit. I noticed the 81 getting into the corner about 2 laps ago. He got down to the bottom, but it just didn't stay on the bottom. It kind of drifted high up about a half a lane, but it made that outside lane then go a little bit higher, and it kind of gives that spacing that we talked about. And then when you get the drivers spaced apart, they get the draft back down the straightaway, they get those big runs. Right now they're all kind of staying calm with the run, but eventually these guys are going to start making moves when they get that big momentum built up from the draft. It's going to be something that all night we're going to be talking about, especially as these tires get older. That outside line right now pinching down the inside line.
Pinching down, but it'll really pinch more. These tires are going to fade away or force the driver inside to slow down. But even if you're on the outside, this car decides to tighten up in the center of the corner, kind of is what we call a plowing motion. It's basically where the car just wants to go straight. That's going to be the sign of even all drivers. Even if you're on the inside, outside, you're in some major trouble. Where we have to see drivers maybe let off a little bit more than they're used to, and That was something everyone was kind of nervous because that was a big issue early in the season of drivers just running into one another, not really having enough time to back off, give each other space, and give themselves space to react in big moments. Curious on, with this run continuing on, who's willing to give, or is it all take with still over 100 laps to go?
Well, driver, I think that right now wants take is that 24. We've seen him quite often get down there below that red line, use a different driving style, but he's making time. He's moving up through the field. He's up to 6 now, right now in the running order. Wasn't too long ago that he wasn't in the top 10. Slowly making that move, able to work the bottom. He's been making his passes, getting around cars. It's hard to pass right now. These cars are still close. It's hard to still get around them, but the 24 has been one of the drivers making moves.
At 24, Volley Fonseca still settling in and currently is our biggest mover of 14 positions. Driver that really gave up a lot of time currently is Zach Hull down 11 spots and Cedric Hunter down 11 spots. And they would like to move forward, but I think they're starting to sense there's a wall. It is almost impossible to make any passes, and this is the troublesome spot of Atlanta. With how narrow this track is, yes, you can go 3 wide when you've got fresh rubber and everyone can trust their vehicle, but when you have to trust the cars around you, 3 wide is not a comfortable zone to put yourself in.
It's really not. And what we're seeing out here is kind of what we mentioned before. We talked the drivers starting to get spacing out, but then all of a sudden that draft brought them right back together. And then they're kind of like a rubber band. They're stretching out and then they're getting further apart, getting closer back together, utilizing the draft. It's like when we mentioned the spacing, then they get right back. Before, it looked like that second pack was maybe 4 or 5 cars behind this main draft, and then all of a sudden the group got really big again. That's definitely something that's going to be, like you mentioned, it's so hard to pass. When they were single file or a little bit spacing in between cars, you can get around each other, but now all of a sudden they're back 2x2, there's nowhere to go. It's going to mean someone's going to have to make a 3 wide move eventually.
You make the 3 wide move heading through the tri-oval, or do you try to make it on the backstretch, set it up on the entry of the corner? So many options that these drivers have, but currently it's been all Bryson Hicksonbaugh and John Forbes side by side. They make a swappage of which lane they want to be leading, as Bryson Hicksonbaugh is now on the outside, John Forbes down low, but both continue to be leading their own lane. And currently that inside row getting a little bit more squeezed as the 81 of Jason Tamer seems like he wants to giddy up and go, but right now Larry Yingling in the 67 is not in the same zone of, you know what, let's give each other some space right here.
Larry Yingling, one of the few drivers up in the front that has the option to pull up into that second line with that spacing beam. But as I say that, the 24 is actually going to go up there. He's going to go up into that second lane. Looks like the 15 right now not able to stay right up on the 63. But the 67 choosing not to go up into that second line. Maybe he wants to stay behind the 11, see what he has.
Drivers are starting to move up, find that comfort zone. Cody Reed and that pink smiley face machine was just trying to hold on, but a big scare for the 29 of Anthony Gaudio. Got really tight in the center of the corner there through 1 and 2. That's the first sign of someone getting tight. I think this might be the next couple of laps to watch out for. These next 5-10 laps are going to be so crucial on where to go. And to that 24, you've been mentioning him for a while now, Justin. He almost thought about going 3 wide with Ken Campbell.
Yeah, he's that driver right now, I think, that wants to make the most moves. He's got speed. He's got it figured out. Biggest mover of the race, but he wants more. He wants to get to that lead. He doesn't want just 6th position. He wants to get up there. He has gotten to the outside. Is he able to push the 15 up to the 63? Will those 3 cars be able to be the first 3 to break away from this little bit of group here? Will they have something figured out? You see the backfire getting out, getting into the corner. You see him lifting. So still, driver lifting.
Still lifting, still trying to be cautious as much as you can and just make it through the corner. Also, the back half of the pack starting to feel a little bit more clustered up. There's not, our top 22 pretty close to one another. They are still on top of each other. That's all the way back from Bryson Hicksonbaugh back to Ben Keeney in the battle side by side for 21st, also with Douglas Newbigging. Got a group of 3 that have just completely checked out and have decided, you know what, let's give ourselves some extra spacing. Being Ryan Kelly, James Heater, and James Kaufman all deciding, let's just give each other some space, let's back off. We still have a little bit of, a lick of the draft. We don't need to put any pressure to get in the mix of all that madness ahead of us.
It makes you wonder, do those 3 drivers have something planned where maybe during this pit stop they might go 2 tires only? We know tire wear is important, But with it being so hard to pass and it being a plate style race, do they think 2 tires, fill it up with fuel and get out there and get the lead and then defend? That could be a strategy. It'll be something we're going to find out. We still have about 30 laps before we're expecting to see these drivers on pit road if they choose the one-stop strategy. So 30 laps still out there to push it on these tires and hopefully save fuel so you can get to that 75 lap mark.
You know, bringing in some of that real-life NASCAR talk, I know during the Daytona 500 2 weeks ago, they brought up on the broadcast of, you know, when it's green flag racing, you just take 2 tires under caution, maybe you'll take 4. I'm curious again if that is the same mindset for everyone out here on track. If for the WSSR, it's just 2 tires, or I know for a fact no one is taking 0 tires. Tires will be taken. The question is, do you take 2 or 4 under green? Because that's a lot of time you're giving up if you decide to go with that extra grip. But the extra grip might be enough speed you need to go for the victory.
And how hard did you push out here? Only the driver driving the car knows how hard they were really pushing. Were they trying to run wide open, or were they lifting, getting into the corner and utilizing the draft down the straightaways? We know Zach Hall in the beginning gave himself plenty of space. I think that's a driver who might be in that strategy of maybe taking 2 tires. Something we're going to find out shortly, though. But still, about 25 laps before we see anyone on pit road is what we're expecting.
Yeah, and that halfway zone of laps 75 to 76 is what we're expecting these drivers to go into pit road with. Or could we see someone around lap 50 trying to do an early pit stop, which there were talks of some thinking about going with the 2-stop strategy, but the question then loomed of, will we have enough time to gain all that track position back of, you know, taking that early stop? And what if a caution flag came out while trying to pit? A lot of scenarios that kind of spooked drivers from wanting to go with the 2-stop strategy. I think everyone's thinking, you know what? If you're not the leader, save the fuel. Try to stretch it out and save those tires to last all the way to the end.
It will be something that it will be interesting to see what drivers do. Maybe if it might be your lottery ticket in. You might have to do something extreme. Maybe get 2 or 3 other guys to pit with you early, do a 2-stop race, see if you can make up the time, being a 3-car team, working together, not racing side by side, utilizing the newer tires. But it's going to be something that is risky. You mentioned a caution comes out, not going to be ideal. You could lose a lap and a half easily here pitting under green.
Christopher Norris, we right on board with the 38 machine, has moved up 5 positions from where they qualified back in 19th position, and in the middle of the pack. Not the worst spot to be right now for Christopher Norris, one of the drivers that's pretty locked in on making the playoffs with the amount of points that came in. Guys, a positive 33-point buffer entering tonight. So Christopher Norris, all he has to do is just finish up front. But like I said right before we went green, where you start with when the white flag hits probably isn't where you're going to be finishing at the end of the night. We always expect a big wreck on that white flag if we can even get there, as the fields start close in, a little bit more bobbling going on, drivers searching for space. But man, right on board with Christopher Norris, you can just see how crazy it feels and where to even place yourself if you want to go forward, because there really isn't that much space to them right on board with this 38 machine.
No, but what we're seeing is I believe they are 3 wide in front of them. I think the 29, 79, and 28 are 3 wide. Yes, they are. We're seeing our first action of 3 wide. Looks like it's Brian P. Johnson up there on the 3rd line. And Brian McCann actually, it looks like he may slap the wall just a little bit, not too hard. But that's one of the first actions we're seeing is right now Christopher Norris is going to take it in 3 wide. He decides he saw something he likes. Is he able to hold the line? He's going to be able to do it. Is he going to get clear coming out of the corner? That's the big question. He is. He's going to be able to get cleared. He got the position in the middle.
That kid is just so reckless when it comes to super speedway type racing. I talked to him right before I hopped in the booth. Said, hey, your recklessness might get cause the big one. It's happened a lot in the past, but practiced a lot on trying to go 3 wide. I think it took a lot of good information, even with a lot of the mistakes that he made during practice of forcing the issue. But hey, that's what practice is for. Test your limits of these vehicles, and that's what Christopher Norris has learned, and now is trying to go as Ali Fonseca, who's been the aggressor throughout these first 53 laps, now is going to be forced to go 3 wide going backwards.
All these drivers all of a sudden have figured out we could go 3 wide, and now we have a race going on. They were staying patient the first 50 laps. Now, no way. They want to get 3 wide. They want to get their track position. They want to all lead this race. Brian P. Johnson up there, Ali Fonseca up there. Bryson Higginbotham, what's he going to do if they get up there that 3rd lane? Is he going to go up high and be able to block? Right now, Brian P. Johnson up there, and it looks like the 15 may be testing that higher lane too, as Christopher Norris is going to try and get into the middle here. He wants to make up the ground.
Christopher Norris just went from just 5 positions up from where he qualified to now 14 as he continues the muscle through the middle, just showing you save the tires, you got the grip, find an opening, and you can go forward. Now up to 4th and battling for 3rd as Ken Campbell gets shuffled back into the 3rd car in line.
The action is picked up now. These drivers are ready to race. They figured out this track. It took them a little bit. They know what they can do now. But we have an accident.
Anthony Gaudio, Zach Hall up at the outside wall. Also going to be seeing the 7 of Douglas Newbigin spun around. And our first caution of the day wasn't even around where we thought the chaos was.
No, happened in the back. Douglas Newbigin gets it back into the wall. Anthony Gaudio also. Zach Hall maybe got a little bit of damage, but Douglas Newbigin not getting the car rolling yet. He's going to have to get that going. There he goes. He's able to get it refired up, get the car hopefully to pit road, get it all the damage fixed, get back out there. But wow.
As it's actually going to be the contact initially of Zach Hall, Anthony Gaudio, as Anthony Gaudio clips in front of the 32. We're going to see on this replay as they go down into turn number 1. 29 thinks he's clear, moves up, and Zach Hall's bumper's there, spins him around, but then the 7 just gets ran over by Ben Peony, who's not able to slow down in time, and spins Douglas Newbigin around, and that's going to bring out our first caution of the day. It's around the window, actually, for these drivers to try to turn this race into a 2-stop, so we still have at least one more pit stop before the night is done. And that puts these drivers in a position where we're expecting everyone to hit pit road, 4 tires and fuel, get ready for another long green flag run.
4 tires and fuel, definitely. I think, like you mentioned earlier in the broadcast, under caution, probably going to want to take those 4 tires. This gives you a perfect opportunity, though, to take 2 tires or maybe 0 later on when you do make your final pit stop.
Well, as these drivers are entering pit road, getting service done, no one's going to be officially out of this race as the damage and collisions weren't hard enough to really take anyone out. Hardest collision will go to Douglas Newbigin, who's expecting to get that damage repair pretty quick. But for us in the booth, we're going to step away for our first commercial break. When we come back, we got more Atlanta Superspeedway type racing here tonight for the WSSR Roast to Gems Cup Series as the Atlanta 150. It's been a good one so far. We got plenty of more racing action right after this when we come back from this commercial break.
Hey, this is Benjamin Nelson, your Season 7 WSSR Cup champion. I'd like to give a thanks to Roasted Gems Coffee, Trophy Smack, all the admins at WSSR, Snowy Desert Racing, everybody that tunes in to the Freaky Fast broadcast every week, including my family and friends, co-workers as well. And I am so honored to be able to hoist this beautiful trophy. I've never been more proud to be a champion.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series on Freaky Fast Broadcasting. You're watching the Atlanta 150, the last race of the regular season to see who's making the playoffs. After tonight, 16 drivers will be placed and ready to duel for the championship for Season 8. Currently, it's been the Bryson Hicksonbaugh and John Forbes show up front as we had our first caution of the day just come out a few laps ago. Well, the drivers are back to side-by-side racing and expecting this to stay in this position for at least the next 30 laps or so before they get back to three-wide racing before that last caution flag that just was thrown. It's been a fun one to watch so far on how these drivers are protecting, defending, and how will they survive to the end. My name is Sam Dyer. Joining me up the booth is Justin Malarkey, and as well having Robert Moyer Jr. running productions in the background. Justin, it's still the same two up front, but certainly a lot of knowledge we took in there in those first 55 laps for the yellow.
The drivers learned a lot. You and I learned a lot up here. We were just discussing. It looked like maybe the first 50 laps the drivers were kind of figuring out what do they need to do, trying to learn the track. And then all of a sudden, Christopher Norris was like, I figured it out. I'm going to shoot to the middle, gain positions like crazy every lap. He was passing cars left and right, going right through the middle. But right now, he's down on the inside line, second car on the inside line. Back in that tire save mode, doesn't want to heat him up too much, wants to have something for maybe lap 80, 90. This way they could get this stage split in two. We were talking, maybe they start pitting around 90, 95, and then they can go the final 45 to 50 laps.
Yeah, we also were talking during the commercial break about the lap times that these drivers are putting in. They are way slower than I think a lot of people might have projected that they would have been. I think if fuel maybe was a bigger issue, that for sure you're pitting twice. Maybe they'd be a lot more gung-ho on pushing and being aggressive. Also with tire wear being so critical, they're protecting their tires massively. They're already about 6 laps into this run of green flag racing, and they're already a second off of some of their fastest lap times. They are really holding back, at least our front runners are, and the rest of the field just sticking to that pace, saying, okay, that's as fast as we want to run. We'll slightly back off and let the draft pull us to stay with you, what these drivers are leading.
That's tremendous feedback to give to these viewers so they can understand what they're seeing right now. What you're saying is these drivers aren't pushing right now. They're all kind of being content to ride 2x2, try and save a little bit of fuel, save some of that tire to have later on. But like you mentioned, they could at any moment pick up that momentum, maybe pick up about a second in speed, and then make these moves, get the runs, pull out a line, get 3 wide. We saw it happening right before that yellow. So at any given point, things could get chaotic, but I think, like you mentioned, these drivers right now, they kind of want to go back into that save mode, knowing it's not even halfway yet. Get to maybe halfway and then go from there.
Yeah, and I know that there's a lot of speed underneath a lot of these machines, because I was looking at a driver like the 9 of Shane Terrian, who has currently the fastest lap of anyone, currently 1 lap down after being involved in that last incident. A driver that waited until about 7-8 laps in our first initial start of the race on lap 7 and was pretty far back from the pack, just put down a burner lap, trying to go for that Rocket Man award, was the 9, which he's always aiming for that award every single week. But, you know, there's always about enough speed these drivers have underneath them, but it's protecting so that you've got a vehicle to make those big moves that we were seeing, like Christopher Norris did later on around lap 50, 55. Already some jostlings to that pink smiley face machine of Cody Reed. Bounces the outside, now bounces the inside, trying to find where they're going to go in the middle group as they continue to stay side by side up front. In kind of traditional super speedway racing, you take what you can take, like what you're given. If there's space below you, you take it. If there's space up above, you're taking that as well.
Take an inch, take a foot. If someone's going to give you an opening, you're going to fill it. We believe that pink machine's definitely going to fill it. We saw him go left, right a couple times there on the screen. He wants those spots. It's hard, like you said, to pass. Sometimes you have to be willing to take that. Even when other drivers might be thinking, you know what, let's just cruise. Then all of a sudden you get a guy out there who says, I don't want to cruise anymore. I want to drive it to the front. We saw how quick these guys were able to make passes. We mentioned not too long ago, Christopher Norris, he put on a show for us. He did it, and he's back in that 3rd line now on the inside. Brian P. Johnson got around him. But Norris maybe learn, save those tires, and then make the move in about 30 laps from now.
I do want to give kind of a weather report, you could say, for some of the drivers and also for ourselves. I know that there is some massive storms in the real life that's going on. I'm also on track. Taking a look at the weather conditions, it's going to be 106 degrees on track, but pretty warm. And for all the people that are on the East Coast, I should say, complete opposite. It is a lot of rain, a lot of wind, and some drivers were talking about during their hour practice before this race began, of having internet droppage, power droppage. And just want to let you know, for our side, on the broadcast side, we also are in that big warning zone. So if our broadcast at any moment here tonight just drops, blame it on the weather. It wasn't our fault. So just a wide warning to everyone that's watching with us here this evening. And if we see anyone running out there, watch out for it.
Definitely something to be mindful of. Weather, always a concern. Anywhere, even on the simulator, don't want to have any drastic changes. Makes the car drive a little bit different. But right now, I tell you what, that Bryson Hickenbaugh, he's got his car driving on the outside, but John Forbes on the inside. They swapped positions before. John Forbes was on the outside. Now he's on the inside. It doesn't matter where those two are. It seems like they can't get away from each other. 81's up in that third lane there. Noticed he got a little high getting into that corner. These drivers were about maybe 15 laps away from getting back to that worn out rubber where we're seeing maybe those free wide moves start to develop.
Trying to develop as much as they can as the field continues to stay side by side as we're inching closer and closer to the halfway zone of tonight's race. Thank you again for everyone that's joining with us here on Freaky Fast Broadcasting as we are at closing in on the halfway zone. It also gives us time to thank our sponsors once again, as we have the amazing sponsors from Roasted Gems Coffee. Roasted Gems Coffee brings you the finest in equity coffee gems, as well as roasted just for you. Delight your senses with their popular blends such as French vanilla and cinnamon, and go explore all the other high-quality blends that are there for you. With free shipping in the U.S., go on and check out Roasted Gems for more great quality enjoyment of their coffee. Go to roastedgems.com and remember to use the promo code WSSR for 5% off. And as well, huge thank to Trophy Smack. They've been the WSSR Smack for 10% off. Thank you again to our amazing sponsors as the field continues to stay side by side up front.
Field is staying side by side, but you saw 52, Cody Reed. He's one of those drivers still going down below that apron on the front straightaway, trying different strategies. Right now he has space to come up, but like you mentioned, eventually if that gap gets filled and he goes down there and leaves that opening, will he be able to get back to the racing surface without having to worry about someone filling that gap? Right now, no one's doing it, but later on in the race, that could be concerning. Although,
it really could be concerning to watch out for as this race progresses forward, but yeah, I mean, there's always, everyone's got the chance, though, here tonight. With how close these drivers are and willing to side draft, Justin, I think if you're up front, that's not even the safest place to be later in this race.
Yeah, probably not going to be. Brian P. Johnson actually make that move, go right up into the outside line, kind of leaving the 11 out there without any help. We're going to see right now if Christopher Norris is able to get to him. Looks like he's going to kind of get closer to him. Maybe he'll be able to push him down the straightaway, keep that inside line form. But one thing we haven't talked too much about, Sam, bump drafting. Are we going to start seeing that kind of develop maybe down these back straightaway? Maybe the front straightaway is a little curved. Not sure if we'll want to see it there. But that back straightaway, will we see it there?
I think maybe if it's later on in the race, maybe with 10, 15 laps to go, fresh rubber underneath these cars, as they're going to be 3 wide for the lead. Brian P. Johnson ships it to the outside lane, forcing Bryson Hickenbaugh down in the middle groove. John Forbes in that bump draft you were curious about. Christopher Norris is using the bumper on the 11. They're going forward as they'll stay side by side for second place. John Forbes is solidified in first.
These drivers now all of a sudden woke up. We're at that point. Drivers are starting to slip around. Brian P. Johnson going to try and make that third line work again. He was one of the first drivers to get up in that third lane earlier in the first run. Now he's doing the same thing, but Bryson Hickenbaugh, he's kind of caught in the middle. We know how important points are to him as the 1567.
Trouble gonna strike, and it's drivers in the middle of the field that's going to be having a major shuffle around. We stay green, but a huge shimmy in the outside wall. Big kudos to the field for keeping it together and pointing straight. But man, that could have been really bad there, Justin, as we stay green.
They definitely kept it together, but I think there's some damage on the 67. I think he's got the right front damage pushed in a little bit. I saw some of the tires sticking out. That might be something that's going to hurt him. Let's see. We're going to get a good angle here. Is that right front tire sticking out, or is it just kind of the way the fender is? It looks like it's just pushing out a little bit. It seems like I see a little bit more tires, Sam.
Yeah, a little bit of tires starting to show, but like we said, these vehicles can be tanks, and if we get a caution, I think damage repair is going to be needed for sure, but the draft is enabling Larry Yingling to still stay in the fight. Talk about fight, 3 wide, lead once again. Christopher Norris doesn't wait for anybody. He's going to stick to the inside, leaving John Forbes in the middle. Bryson Hixenbaugh trying his fate against the wall, and Christopher Norris now leading the way up front.
Norris takes the lead, being aggressive. He's rewarded with the lead. Brian P. Johnson, he was up in that 3rd lane. Now he's down on the bottom. Just trying to get the draft working down on the bottom for him. But who do we see coming in that picture to 52? We know he was aggressive getting down there below the apron at some points. He's up there in the top 6 now. He wants to make moves, get up there, lead this race.
Yeah, Cody Reed, one of those drivers that's hoping to either win his way in or point his way into the playoffs. And with some of the drivers that have been having troubles here tonight, and with Brandon Colley not going to be racing for the rest of the season, this 52's got a chance as John Forbes doesn't wait, throws it down below, forcing Christopher Norris now into the middle groove. Hixenbaugh going to be working on the outside. But for Cody Reed, he's had some dramatic finishes at super speedway type tracks. I think back to last season at Talladega, start of the playoffs, and was the 52 that had one of the most incredible finishes and kind of was the thief at the night at Talladega with an identical crossing the line finish between himself and Benjamin Nelson, with Zach Hall there as well. And it was Cody Reed that took the official win, winning by 1/1000th of a second. This group, this field, they know it might come down to that, just like how NASCAR did, coming down just 1/1000th of a second. In the real world, these Gen 4s, the way they're running, might be just close as the field continues to rip forward. They got one issue, though. They have a lot of traffic that's closing in front of them. They got to be careful with. That's Shane Terrian in the 9 that this field is closing on.
They'll be hoping that he's able to maybe go on down below the apron and they could get by him no problem on the back straightaway. The problem, Sam, where do you catch him? It's going to be hard to predict. How much faster are you going right now in this draft versus a single car? Where are you going to catch that lap car? Will he be able to go up in that 3rd lane? We know there's not a ton of room up there, and these guys kind of have been fanning out. We're going to find out here really soon in the next lap here. But Benjamin Nelson, we saw him go from the 2nd lane down to the inside lane, and then he was actually able to take the lead. We also saw Christopher Norris get the lead, and then John Forbes make a move right back on him. It's
a 40 lap dash, and then you'll think about, coming into pit road. Maybe they're thinking about, we just be aggressive, we push forward, and we go to the halfway zone of 45 laps. So let's get aggressive. Let's use our rubber, knowing we're going to be pitting here in the next 15 laps, maybe 20 laps from now.
I like that strategy. And another strategy is if you don't push it, don't use all that rubber. You go in and take no tires. Do you just get in there, get the gas, try and maybe get a 5-6 second lead built up? If you have 2 or 3 cars and stay single file, could you guys pull away from the big draft? We should be able to do that. That's something that maybe some of these guys in the back might do. I'm expecting a driver like Ryan Kelly. He chose to start in the back. He stayed in the back. It seems like he's stayed back there on purpose. I'm expecting him to do something strategy-wise here on this pit stop, which could begin, really, in the next 5 to 10 laps.
Shane Terrian staying on track, gonna stay low. Everyone's gonna be squeezed to go high, go to the middle, and everyone's gotta hold on. Terrian's trying to stay with this lead pack, slow them down, but it forcing everyone to go 3 wide and move up on the track was a nerve-wracking spot, and then still gonna be forcing the 9 to go backwards. This little terror is not over just yet, but it does allow 3 wide racing. We're gonna be 3 wide, 2 rows, almost 3 rows deep.
Wow, all that from getting around Shane Terrian, it kind of showed these guys to stay 3 wide up in the front. They had to make their moves. Benjamin Nelson's in the middle. Ryan, we got a little bit of trouble back there. Looks like the 31 up in the wall, able to save it. He's going to stay green, not too much damage I don't expect on that, but he did get up there in the wall.
Quick graze of the wall, huge puff of smoke, but we stay moving forward, staying 3 by 3 for these drivers. And Bryson Hixenbaugh hoping to get just maybe a little bit more help on the exit of the corner, but the grip starting to fall away, and to drive new fighter up in this lead pack. Isaiah Sutherland in the 14 machine in a very close spot, very similar to Cody Reed, can point their way in, but a win will solidify him in the playoffs.
Oh no, Bryson Hicksonbaugh up in the wall. Same with Cody Reed. They're both stuck up in the wall. Going to lose a lot of time. Able to get off the wall. They're going to stay in the draft, but definitely gave up a lot of position. Those two drivers might be drivers that might be thinking, you know what? Let's go in and get that tire and try that strategy because we just lost a lot of time. But they're still 3 wide here, Sam. The 81 stuck in the middle of 38 right underneath them. Isaiah Sutherland up high. These guys are now putting on the show we were expecting from these drivers.
This is exactly why this track was put on the schedule, was for this type of racing. Where do you place yourself? You're Benjamin Nelson, John Forbes, Jason Tamer, who's fighting for just a win, not even a chance to make the playoffs as the 81. He could be the thief of the night for this season, as we're seeing himself moving forward. But a little bit of a note on Bryson Hicksonbaugh as well for Cody Reed. Those drivers are still in this lead pack, attached to the pack at least with the draft. But I don't think they can pit immediately. They have to at least get to lap 100 and turn this race into something a little bit more sustainable for later on in the race to have the tires to fight back, because if your running is too off, you pit too soon, you're not going to have the tires to try to hold off the field that pits later on.
I do have to say I agree with you right there. It's definitely early. If you do pit, you got to worry about that caution. That could be something that could be a very big problem. Don't want to deal with that. But I think someone's out there definitely going to try 2 tires, maybe 0 tires. I think someone in the back who says it's too hard to get up there and pass, they're going to